Honorable members, let's pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled. Grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Honorable members, 3 more members and we shall start business. And there we are. We did not have quorum, we were less by 3 members, and luckily we have just managed without ringing the bell. So let's have business starting.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
On this particular order, we have the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 29th, 2021, evening sitting. A report on the Departmental Committee of Agriculture and Livestock on its consideration of the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bill number 68 of 2019. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements. Order number 8, the impeachment procedure bill, Senate Bill number 15 of 2018, second reading.
On this particular one, I think the mover is not in. So we probably go to the next order.
Order number 9, the National Cohesion and Peace Building Bill, Senate Bill number 35 of 2018, second reading.
Do we have the mover on this particular one? I also don't think so. So let's confirm first. I have also confirmed that the mover of this particular bill is absent. So then again, we will have to. What is your point of order, Honorable Sankok?
Honorable Speaker, I think you should name and shame those who are missing, Honorable Speaker, because we cannot all come here, all the honorable members. We have just gotten quorum without even the ring of the bell of quorum. Yet the chairman and vice chair of committees, because these two are supposed to be moved by chairman and vice chairs, like the National Cohesion and Peace Building is supposed to be moved by the chairman of the Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities, in which I was kicked out after only 2 months, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, these guys who are missing, you should name them, shame them, so that the country should know who are these people who don't attend sessions, who are paid, and they are not here, Honorable Speaker. And I also want you to ask Honorable Mbadi to produce Honorable Junet. He has been missing in action for the past, I think, 1 week. So you should produce him dead or alive, Honorable Speaker, because I'm missing him.
Now, you know, Honorable nominee 001, the Honorable Sankok, you have raised 2 different issues. Actually 3. The first one is, of course, the fact that the particular mover is absent. Now, I cannot name or shame him for now because I have to get the good reason, because like the chair in this particular committee, I am aware is out on official duties. So then therefore I cannot name or shame him. But of course I want to know the reason why they are not here or have delegated. The second issue, of course, is the fact that you are kicked out of the committee, because that's what the lamentation I hear from you. That one, there is absolutely little I can do about it, because you saw that that's a done deal. It happened. Now we need to move forward. Now, the third one is the habeas corpus application. I do not know if you understand that one, the Honorable Sankok. That basically means produce the body. So you are saying, Honorable Minority Leader should produce the Honorable Junet, alive or otherwise. So I do not know the real reason, because you know the only problem is you had brought it very well. But the only problem I realized eventually it was about you missing him. Now that one makes it a bit about if you said you are the one who. So I don't think I'm going to act on that particular one. Yes, but what is your point of order, the minority leader?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, Honorable Sankok had a serious point, but the way sometimes he prosecutes his point, delivery is, I don't want to say wanting, but with a lot of humor until we lose the substance of what actually was supposed to be raised. Mr. Speaker, it is interesting that we have 2 bills lined up for debate. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, if a chair and vice chair, for whatever reason, would not be available, and there is no any other member who would help in moving the motion, the best thing to do is to alert the House Business Committee so that your bill or motion is deferred to a later date. But it is very untidy, Mr. Speaker, that we are all settled here, and you can see the attendance is very high, Mr. Speaker. This is a demonstration that members are committed to this sitting. And then we come here and movers of motions who are basically chairs of committees and who are actually earning responsibility allowance, each one of them, and earning super sitting allowance cannot be present. Mr. Speaker, there is no excuse for this, and I think a message needs to be sent through the majority leadership. And I can see the whip is here. Let the chairs know, these specific chairs, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. In fact, the vice chair happens to be coming from my side. I'm going to reprimand him and let him understand that he has a responsibility, the chair and the vice chair from the House. We have to go to the records. And so, Honorable Junet, I know sometimes has other commitments, but he also comes here once in a while and comes at the right time and makes his contribution. And I know that, well, he may not be sitting here a lot, but he has a deputy. And as you can see, the deputy is ably sitting on that chair very comfortably, and is a very calm legislator. You may not even know that he's serving his 3rd term. That is Dr. Eseli. He is very much occupying the seat of the whip, so the seat is not vacant. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
are taking too long on this. Something, of course, which the minority leader has raised, which is critical, I'm going to respond to. But what is it, the Honorable Nyoro?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I also wish to add my voice on that. Because, Mr. Speaker, as you know, we are making great sacrifices in coming for these evening sittings, Mr. Speaker. And I don't think it is very tidy for the leadership of the two committees, Mr. Speaker, not to be available at such a time. But I also, the reason why I raised on a point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that I would request you that you establish where the breakdown could be, so that we avert this kind of thing in future, Mr. Speaker, especially the communication between the House Business Committee and the relevant movers. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, is also the role of the whip, because I suppose that the whip ought to have known the business that is bringing us to this house this evening, so that he can alert the relevant personalities, Mr. Speaker, so that we are not in this kind of a quagmire.
Okay. Now, even before, I'll give the Honorable Wangwe and probably another one member to speak on it. But members, let's not look desperate for work. We already have a lot in our hands. In fact, the next item, the chair and the vice chair are present, and they have agreed that the vice chair is going to be moving. Now, that means we have work. Now, the people who lose, the particular people who lose will be the committee chairs who are to move this one, because, you know, they will go down the ladder, down the ranking, in terms of when they are going to have an opportunity to move these bills. So really, I don't think as a House we are lacking what to do. We have actually two other very important motions that we will be able to canvass and work. So we are not losing much. But for those chairs who have not come, it is critical that when you know there is a matter before the House that you are supposed to prosecute, there has to be good information, both to the House Business Committee if there is need to go that direction. Because in terms of the House Business Committee, you can only go to House Business Committee if you know you are not going to be available, so therefore the slot is given to someone else. But in terms of, you know, knowing the real things that are supposed to be done, I think they should also inform the House in good time, so that we are able to plan the order paper appropriately. So members, I think there is nothing much we've lost. Of course, I will make sure that the majority leader informs and gets to know really what the reason is for their absence. At least I know for the chair of cohesion, is it of the National Cohesion and Peace Bill, the National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities Committee, the Honorable Commander has leave of the Speaker to be absent. So maybe we'll follow it up to make sure that generally we are able to prosecute issues here without any hitch. So, but what is it that you have, before I give the Honorable Wangwe, let me start with the Honorable Bukose here. And then I come to Wangwe, which I think we can be able to finish that. Let's not take too much time on a matter that is going to take the very precious time for the House. Honorable Dr. Bukose, what is it?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you know that the de facto Speaker has raised this issue on several occasions about chairs and vice chairs missing in the House. And I think it's a high time. Now you've also, as the de jure Speaker, raised the same.
Well, let me just tell you, Honorable Bukose,
yes.
The mixture of those two terms are actually confusing you a little.
The de jure and the de facto.
Yes. So
okay.
I really want, I would rather you use the medical terms because you are very familiar with. Because if you go the direction that you are going.
Thank you for that guidance. Thank you. Thank you, Speaker, for that guidance. What I wanted to say is that, Honorable Speaker, these are matters that have been raised, and I think it's a high time that the House actually pronounces itself on this matter.
Okay.
On the matter which Honorable Sangok has raised about Honorable Junet, you know he's been appearing on the list as not having a degree, and therefore I think he might be reading to get a degree. Therefore, I think
let's leave that one for now.
I think we should be able. Other members also who are reading and get for the degrees should be allowed, Honorable Speaker.
No, I think let's leave that one, Honorable Dr. Pukose. That one, you know, we were dealing with something very substantial.
I know.
Very, very substantial. You know, occasionally you miss out on the House, Honorable Pukose, and we do not even want to imagine that probably you are doing something like surgery, which we understand is because you are a surgeon yourself. Let's leave that. About those other issues, I don't think we need to go that direction. Honorable Amalwa there, Honorable Dr. Amalwa, because this is something that we really need to take serious.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very, very embarrassing. Today, in fact, I was just discussing with some honorable members that this evening sitting looks so popular because when you were saying we had less 3 members, we didn't even hear the bell, the members were here. But now to be let down by the chairs, the best thing to do, I think the respective committee members should start proceedings to replace them immediately, Mr. Speaker. We know very well, Mr. Speaker, under our standing orders, it is true. And they should learn from this, Mr. Speaker. We should not be able to entertain this. You can imagine some of us with even young families, Mr. Speaker, we are supposed to be home. But we decided to come here. People have sacrificed, Mr. Speaker. But now the issue here is this. No.
Doing what at home this time?
Absolutely. But any member in a committee, any member in a committee, Mr. Speaker, on a matter like this, it is showing that they have no confidence in that particular leadership. You are aware that majority of the chairs of these committees, some of them were not even voted for, Mr. Speaker. We want people who can be tested, Mr. Speaker.
I think if we knew that they are absent for reasons that are not very reasonable, maybe we would be having an issue. But as we've said, you know, and it happens, every member here once in a while are out on official duties. We really cannot crucify these members. And as I've said, we are not lacking anything to do. We have a lot in our hands. They are the ones who have lost. Really, let's not go that direction. Let's just proceed. Maybe I'll only leave the majority whip to say something. And as he says something, we will, then I'll make a small decision.
Thank you very much, Chair, Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak with a lot of assumption that my colleagues who are the chairs are not IT challenged. Because, Honorable Speaker, everyone got the order paper as early as yesterday. And the information Honorable Ndindi Nyoro has put on this floor, Honorable Speaker, that the whip is supposed to whip someone to read on a computer is purely misleading the country, Honorable Speaker. By virtue of Parliament having provided the IT solutions, it means everyone should now be able to know where it's supposed to be a day or 24 hours to come. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to call upon you in your capacity as the chair of Liaison Committee, that you also take it up and inform the chairs that what they are doing, they are messing up the House by not being available. If they are not going to be present, let their vices do it. If not, any member within the committee, Honorable Speaker, could be able to prosecute a matter on the floor. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, on my part, I will do what is possible to make sure that chairs do what is supposed to be done. Okay. And on your side also, Chair, Honorable Speaker, do the necessary. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, I hear you. I hear you only that the Honorable Angwe, being a majority whip, quite a lot lies on your shoulders, including making sure that some of this, whipping those particular chairs to come to the House and do what is needful. But, as you have put it well, I am going to ask the Liaison Committee, because much as I chair it when I'm out there, but here I'm a speaker for today. We'll make sure that this is something that is, dealt with in terms of coordination between the specific chairs, their clerks, and the House Business Committee and their clerks and your office, so that we are able to know which activity can be brought before the House that can be transacted because of presence of the people who are supposed to transact it. But otherwise, we will have to give a benefit of doubt, because sometimes really there are issues that are beyond control of those particular chairs. But we will make sure that this thing is sorted out. So it will not happen in future, I believe. But I see one chair who wants to say something, but that is something that we have finished. But I'll give you just an opportunity to, to get it from your side of the coin.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know that it is disappointing when chairs do not appear, especially when they are required to move a motion. But I believe that apart from reading from our forums and everywhere else where we are supposed to access, I believe that it takes a very long process before a matter is presented on the floor of this House, where the office of the clerk is involved, where this being a house of procedure, where the chair himself or herself is prepared, and in the absence of the chair, the vice chair, or any other member of the committee. And Mr. Speaker, when it is repetitively said that chairs of committees are not available, I think this afternoon I was here and most of the chairs were here. So as you have said, I think it's a matter of coordination and providing as much support as possible to the chairs and the vice chairs, and even ensuring that by the time a matter is being presented, a chair has been properly prepared. So I believe that there is a reason as to why these chairs are not here, and we'll, as you have committed, we'll also communicate to our colleagues what has been said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
That matter is put to rest. So we'll go to the next order.
Order number 10, motion, inspection visits to ascertain the impact of revenue enhancement initiatives on revenue collection.
Well, I am informed that despite the fact that the chair is around, the vice chair is the one who is mandated to move this particular one. So is that the honorable member, for example?
Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopt the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the inspection visit to the Kenya Revenue Authority offices to ascertain the impact of revenue enhancement initiatives on revenue correction laid on the table of the House on 26 November 2020. Mr. Speaker, Kenya Revenue Authority was established by the Kenya Revenue Authority Act Cap 496 on 1st July 1995 for the purpose of enhancing the mobilization of government revenue while providing effective tax administration and sustainability in revenue collection. There before 1995, revenue collection functions of the government were distributed among at least 5 different ministries and as a result lacked in coordination. Their performance was characterized by inefficiency and low levels of accountability. Therefore, the rationale behind the establishment of KRA arose from the need to enhance efficiency, transparency, and accountability in this critical area of the public sector. The main objective of establishment of KRA, therefore, Mr. Speaker, was to streamline public revenue collection function by bringing the relevant agencies under the umbrella of a central revenue agency under the Ministry of Finance. The board and management of KRA have since its inception spent time and resources setting up systems, procedures, and adoption of new strategies aimed at enhancing operational efficiency of the authority's processes. In particular, the functions of KRA are to assess, collect, and account for all revenues in accordance with the specified provisions of all revenue collection laws, and to advise on matters relating to the administration and collection of revenue under specified provisions of all revenue collection laws, and to perform such other functions in relation to revenue as the Minister of Finance may direct. And Mr. Speaker, in fulfilling its mandate, KRA administers 17 laws all 17 revenue acts, which are, of course, familiar with members of this House, being VAT, that is Cap 476, the East African Community Customs Management Act, the Income Tax Act, Act 470, Cap 470, Customs and Excise Act, Cap 472, the Traffic Act, Cap 403, and KRA has continued to enlarge in size as well as the scope of its operations. Regarding the organization structure, KRA is composed of centralized and decentralized units located across the national territory. The centralized units are basically situated at Times Tower in Nairobi, the capital of the country. The jurisdiction of the decentralized units are geographically distributed across the country in 5 physical regions. That is the Southern Region, Central, Rift Valley, Western, and the Northern Region. And it is for this reason that KRA has been developing effective ways for revenue collection. Mr. Speaker, the advent of new instruments to help business work more efficiently affect the ways taxes and revenues are collected, and KRA has embarked on extensive implementation of various revenue collection strategies in its operations. This was to significantly enhance revenue collection in all departments, implementation of innovative revenue collection strategies, which are supposed to improve its organization structures, training, manpower, planning, developing teamwork among management and staff, and to introduce new approaches to reward management, adaptation of total quality management. Of course, Mr. Speaker, the ability to collect taxes is central to the country's capacity to finance social services such as health, education, critical infrastructure, electricity, roads, and such other public resources, Mr. Speaker. There has been several concerns raised with regards to the challenges affecting revenue efficiency, including rampant corruption involving tax evasion, illegal tax credits, and the theft of government tax revenue. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, one of the mandates of the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning is to investigate and inquire into and report on all matters relating to the mandate and management activities, administration, operations, and estimates of the assigned ministries and departments, of which KRA is one of the institutions which we oversight. To this end, Mr. Speaker, the committee allocated funds as follows to KRA for the procurement of revenue enhancement initiatives. Mr. Speaker, we provided 3.3 billion in the supplementary budget for the financial year 2018-2019 for revenue enhancement initiatives. We also this House provided 3 billion in the budget estimates for the financial year 2019-2020 to implement the revenue enhancement initiatives that was projected to realize additional revenue of 141 billion. There was an additional funding of 2 billion in the supplementary budget for the financial year 2019-2020 for funding of the recruitment of additional 1,000 officers countrywide in order to generate revenue, more additional revenue of 50 billion. And Mr. Speaker, following those budgetary allocations and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected several sectors of the economy, the committee resolved to undertake fact-finding visits to KRA offices and its other satellite facilities with a view to assessing challenges affecting the ability to collect revenue optimally. Mr. Speaker, the committee undertook fact-finding visits to the Kenya Revenue Authorities at Times Tower, the Inland Container Depot, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, the Port of Mombasa, Namanga One-Stop Border Post, Busia One-Stop Border Post, and Malaba One-Stop Border Posts. These visits were undertaken between 23rd September 2020 and 10th October last year. Mr. Speaker, the objectives of the fact-finding mission was to establish whether the programs that this House funded for KRA to undertake, one, were procured according to the budgetary allocation, and also to assess the impact of the reforms on revenue collection, and to find out whether the additional revenue of 191 billion was realized as had been earmarked. To find out also the impact of COVID-19 on revenue collection. To establish the impact of digitization on revenue collection, and finally to establish challenges faced by KRA in the execution of the mandate. And following the visit, Mr. Speaker, to those offices and the OSBPs, that is the one-stop border posts, the committee observed as follows. One, Mr. Speaker, that revenue collection points installed with scanners collected more revenue compared to those without scanners, but with high traffic. For instance, Mr. Speaker, the Maraba one-stop border post, which is busier than Namanga, managed to collect a revenue of 2 billion in the financial year 2019-2020, compared to Namanga, which collected 4 billion in the same year. Mr. Speaker, the difference is that the OSBP at Namanga has been installed with scanners. Mr. Speaker, two, automation of systems has enhanced revenue collection by KRA as there is less human intervention and increased information sharing between the regional offices and with the Times Tower in revenue underperformance due to inadequate staff complement, posing a challenge on service delivery. The Maraba one-stop border post, Mr. Speaker, we were dismayed to find out that they lack decent staff housing, forcing the staff to travel long distances to and from work, which reduces their productivity and puts them in an awkward position where they have to seek accommodation in houses owned by smugglers, thereby compromising their integrity. Mr. Speaker, the committee also observed that there was huge potential of revenue increase if the one-stop border posts were made to operate 24 hours, as this will ease doing business since there is no limitation of working hours. Traders are able to import and export more. The 24-hour operation will also ease congestion as the operating hours will be flexible. Mr. Speaker, we observed that KRA has installed the regional electronic cargo tracking seals. This program, Mr. Speaker, is called RECTS, or Regional Electronic Cargo Tracking Seals, where all containerized transit cargo and single customs territory goods from the port and exercisable goods are tracked under the regional electronic cargo tracking system. The installation of the cargo tracking system has greatly minimized cases of corruption and theft of goods on transit, as there is less or no human intervention and thus improved efficiency due to real-time information sharing. Before this program of RECT, KRA was forced to escort trucks physically to ensure that they reached their destination and they cleared the goods. However, this cargo tracking device, these tracking devices are very few, with the inland container depot having only 5,000. Lack of enough CEOs has created backlog at the port of Mombasa, and hence the need to invest in additional legs. Mr. Speaker, we have also observed that the lack of harmonization of tax on commodities between Kenya and her neighbors has encouraged smuggling of goods into the country, especially alcoholic and soft drinks. For instance, the excise duty payable on alcoholic and soft drinks in Tanzania is relatively lower in comparison to the excise duty charged in Kenya. This has resulted in unscrupulous traders preferring to smuggle the items through the long and porous Kenya-Tanzania border, which, Mr. Speaker, is one of the longest boundaries in East Africa. Mr. Speaker, the introduction of 10% import duty on non-East Africa countries has resulted in a decrease in volumes of hardwood imported into Kenya, and this may lead to deforestation in the country and reduction of revenue. There is need to re-examine the SEZs, the Special Economic Zones policy in Kenya, and carry out a comparative study between our program's policy of SEZs and that of Uganda and Rwanda, as there are reports of some businesses relocating to these two countries, chiefly because of favorable policies and ease of doing business. So, Mr. Speaker, if we hope to succeed, we need to do a comparative study between our charges, our duties, and those of our neighboring countries. Mr. Speaker, the cost of electricity for manufacturers in Kenya is high compared to Uganda, which has lower prices for electricity. And indeed, we import part of our electricity from that country. So, our industrial zones, Mr. Speaker, manufacturing in our industrial zones makes product more expensive than those produced in our neighboring countries. This could be seen by the increase in the number of manufactured products being imported from Uganda to Kenya, e.g. tiles, steel bars, even soft drinks, Mr. Speaker. We import a lot from our neighboring countries. Mr. Speaker, we also observed that the Maraba one-stop border post was poorly designed with no parking space for trucks, leading to long queues of trucks, and the buildings housing the one-stop border post is dilapidated, Mr. Speaker. The road is not paved, and there was no standby generator in case of power failure. That border post had no clean water, Mr. Speaker, and the only reliable water was being pumped from River Maraba for use in sanitation. The contractor did not carry out feasibility study to assess whether there was a potential for drilling a borehole or water supply. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that after our visit and after we highlighted these problems, the Maraba OSBP has already started to sink a borehole, and KRA has provided the money. Kenya Ports Authority has 22 acres of unutilized land close to Maraba one-stop border post that can be utilized for parking of trucks, and this will go a long way in reducing traffic congestion. The road leading to Busia OSBP was narrow and dilapidated, and this leads to long queues of trucks, including those carrying explosive material, posing a risk in case of an explosion, given that there are no fire extinguishers in Busia County. Mr. Speaker, we also established that the speedboats used by KRA for surveillance at the port of Mombasa, as Shimoni, are old and unable to effectively monitor illegal activities in the waters or even apprehend the tax feeders. All one-stop border posts, Mr. Speaker, did not have coolers in their warehouses. Hence, goods stored awaiting clearance easily rot or go bad quickly or expire. Mr. Speaker, the long and porous border between Kenya and her Tanzanian and Ugandan continue to encourage smuggling as the multi-agency teams are unable to provide security surveillance. The cross-border trade, Mr. Speaker, is undermines revenue collection as the traders use the illegal and unmanned routes. Mr. Speaker, I will add my move there, but reiterate, Mr. Speaker, that we are happy that President Samia Suluhu, when she visited Kenya, she promised to work with the Kenyan government to ensure that a new border post is established between Namanga and Lake Victoria. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and invite my honorable chair to second. Welcome, Honorable Wanga.
Well, it's not you to welcome him. I'm giving her. Now that's a good thing. That's a good thing, honorable members. That is to say, this is a vice chair who has a lot of respect for the chair. And, so that is how the vice, well, let's proceed. Is that okay? Thank you, Honorable Speaker. No, I think it is not working. Let me see if I could give you another one. Go to that other one there and see if it can enhance your voice appropriately.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second this report of the Finance and National Planning Committee on optimization of revenue collection measures by the Kenya Revenue Authority. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the Honorable Vice Chair of my committee for very ably moving this report. Honorable Speaker, as the Vice Chair highlighted, the Committee on Finance took a tour of various revenue collection points to assess how effective the revenue optimization measures that had been funded by the committee have been working. Honorable Speaker, just last week, this House passed the finance bill, and we also passed our budget. And we were speaking a lot about how we are going to be able to get revenue, from where, who do we tax, so that we get the revenue to fund our budget. But some of the things that we were looking at during this tour was how can we optimize with the taxation measures that we already have and the taxation areas that we already have. How can we optimize revenue collection? So, as the Vice Chair highlighted, we visited the JKIA, we visited Namanga, one-stop border post, we visited Malaba, one-stop border post, Busia, one-stop border post. We visited the port of Mombasa to look at whether the revenue enhancement measures that have been put by KRA were working. And Honorable Speaker, what I can report is if we focus on facilitating KRA properly, then we can actually be able to raise much, much more revenue, even from the same tax sources than we are raising today, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when we went to JKIA, for example, we went to the cargo area. The scanner in the cargo area of JKIA was not working. It had broken down, which means for every piece of cargo that comes, the KRA people at JKIA have to decide which packages to open to find out whether the packages, are carrying what has been declared. That alone results in a lot of loss in revenue. We went to Busia one-stop border post and Malaba. Both Busia and Malaba had no scanners on the Kenyan side. Uganda, which raises only 600 billion shillings in terms of revenue annually. 600 billion is what just our customs department at KRA raises. That is what the entire Uganda Revenue Authority raises. They have scanners there. On the Kenyan side, there are none. So what the Kenyan side does, a truck is scanned on the Ugandan side, and Kenyan side borrows pictures from the Ugandan side to be able to see whether what is being carried is the truth. So these are some of the issues that we are raising in our report, that there is no reason why a much more superior economy like the Kenyan one should borrow images from the, and this is how serious the issue of scanning is, Honorable Speaker. If a lorry comes, as sometimes you see, and they have at the bottom ethanol, ethanol is excised at around 252 shillings per liter. On top of the ethanol, somebody puts watermelon or something else. So when it's passing, if you don't have a scanner, you would have to remove all the watermelon and return them to discover that there is actually ethanol at the bottom. But if you have a scanner, the scanner will show you that there is ethanol at the bottom and there is watermelon at the top. And that truck will immediately be put aside, and then the person will be caught. And if the truck driver knows there is a scanner, they are less likely to carry illicit goods than if they know there is no scanner. So some of the recommendations that we are making is that in this financial year, and this report was done in the last financial year, and the Committee on Finance made a lot of effort in trying to make sure that KRA gets funded for purchase of scanners, and we want to thank Treasury because they actually gave money for purchase of scanners both for Malaba and Busia, so that we can have scanners there and we can also have scanners on our side. And KRA have really tried. Right now, if you are at the port of Mombasa, for example, if a truck is scanned there, the images immediately are brought to Nairobi and everywhere. So you cannot collude with anybody. The images in that truck are already shown in Nairobi and in the whole place. So what we are saying is we should look at staffing of KRA. By the way, for every one staff you hire at KRA, for every 100 shillings you spend, for every 100,000 shillings you spend, you can raise 100 million in terms of just sending the person to go and look for. So if we hire 1,000 of our youth, we have given them jobs. At the same time, we are raising much, much more revenue than we would have. So that is another recommendation that we are making, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the issues of our tax regime that is leading to a lot of smuggling within the borders, we must deal with it. If you go to Busia, people are drinking beer, cigara, nini, wanatoa, they get it from Uganda. Because sometimes our taxes are too high.
You have 2 minutes to go. I must warn you.
Thank you.
Just added you an extra minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm just finishing by saying that we need to deal with the issue of our tax regime. When we went to the border of Uganda, we found plant and machinery going to Uganda. What does that mean? We are losing manufacturing to Uganda because perhaps they have a better regime of taxation than ourselves. So we need to look at how to retain manufacturing here. Our special economic zones, we need to enhance the tax incentives that we give our people so that we retain manufacturing here. The other thing we did is when we put excise or import duty on timber that is imported, people stopped to bring timber from Congo and other places. Now deforestation is what is happening here, and that is one of the results that we got, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, what this report was intended to do, and what I want to thank Treasury, is that a lot of the things that we pointed out have already been done. When we found Malaba, the place, the roof was leaking, there is no water, they have already begun to repair all that. They have put money there, there is traffic. If you are at Malaba border, traffic is in Ugunja. We are looking at how to raise resources to make a big parking there so that trucks can park as they are processed. and we ensure efficiency of the processes. Honorable Speaker, if we facilitate KRA, we are likely to raise much more revenue without squeezing Kenyans further. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to second.
Okay, then, honorable members, I propose a question, which is that the House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on inspection visits to the Kenya Revenue Authority offices to ascertain the impact of the revenue enhancement initiatives on revenue collections laid on the table of the House on Thursday, November 26, 2020. So, honorable members, we will start with the Honorable Atandi Onunga. Absent. Honorable Sosi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also contribute to this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, I will start by thanking the Committee for Finance for this very positive initiative to try and look at ways of enhancing revenue. Because, Mr. Speaker, you know, every year we do the budgeting process. And if you look at the way the budgets are done, we seem to focus too much on the expenditure side of the budget with very little interest in how to generate more revenue. So I think the Committee of Finance has done a good job because they're now focusing on how to generate more money so that we can spend it on our various programs. And I think this is something that Parliament should put in more effort so that we reduce the burden on Kenyans, as the chairperson has said, in terms of reducing the taxes and any other charges we charge our Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I have had an opportunity to read this report and how I wish a lot more needs to be done in the various issues that the committee has raised to enhance revenue. Mr. Speaker, I will want to comment on the issue of there being 17 pieces of legislation on matters of tax. Some of these pieces of legislation, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to relook at them because it's one of the reasons why we are not able to generate more revenue, so that we see whether or not these pieces of legislation are in tandem with the global trends in matters of tax legislation. There is also the issue of harmonization of these laws with the rest of the countries in the East African community. Because, Mr. Speaker, as it's been said in the report, for example, excise duty on some of the products, you find that excise duty in Tanzania is lower than here in Kenya. And as a result, those products are more expensive in Kenya, but cheaper in Tanzania. So that leads into smuggling and effectively leads into loss of revenue, particularly ethanol, Mr. Speaker. And that is the case because the taxation regime on ethanol in this country is so high. And we have companies that produce ethanol, for example, Mumias Sugar Company. They cannot be able to break even because the tax regime is so high. So what do the traders do? They just smuggle ethanol from Tanzania and they bring it here. And Kenya government loses revenue. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is digitalization of KRA. We need to agree that that computerization of KRA has led to an increase in revenue. But, Mr. Speaker, a lot more revenue can be generated if that digitalization is well managed. Mr. Speaker, I am aware, because my background is in IT, that there is a lot of IT fraud, which I think must be looked at. And it's good we have now a law in place. We have Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act, which has recommended that certain systems, Mr. Speaker, must be declared as critical systems infrastructure. Then, Mr. Speaker, the issue of HR adequate staffing. But we also need to look at HR issues within KRA, Mr. Speaker. Because if staff are not motivated, even if there are many, we'll still have challenges of revenue collection. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I can see my time is up. I support.
Okay, next is the Honorable Nyoro Ndindi.
Thank you very much,
Go
Mr.
by the way you have made
Yes.
requests.
Thank you
Because
very
actually, I think there is no need of issues of balancing and the other here because it's straightforward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I rise to contribute on this report. And Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I have to say that the recommendations from the committee have fallen short from the real issues bedeviling collection of revenues in our country. And Mr. Speaker, when the Treasury CS read the budget in this House, he read a budget of around 3.6 trillion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, at a backdrop of collection or projection of revenues of just around 2 trillion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I have to say that the issues that have been recommended by the committee is just about wish-washing, Mr. Speaker. We should go deep into the real issues that should increase the revenues that we collect as a country, Mr. Speaker, because as you know, it is within the ambit of the government, and especially through KRA, to correct revenues to fund public expenditure. But, Mr. Speaker, these monies come from somewhere. When we talk about revenues, Mr. Speaker, these monies have to be collected from somewhere. And in many years, our Kenya Revenue Authority has always dug deeper to the same taxpayers, Mr. Speaker, without bothering on how to, and especially the treasury in the physical side, on how to create more wealth for our country so that KRA can have a bigger base on where they collect taxes, Mr. Speaker. There is no way you can be owning 2 cows and you want to increase the revenue from your milk, Mr. Speaker, and the yield of those 2 cows from maybe the 20 they produce now to maybe 200. You have to add the number of cows for you to increase the size and the amount of milk and the yield that you get from those cows, Mr. Speaker. And figuratively speaking, Mr. Speaker, we have to widen the bracket where we collect these revenues, Mr. Speaker, so that we do not overburden a few Kenyans. Madam
Order, there's a change of guard.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Now it's not a Mr., but a Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our economy currently is dominated by what I would call extractive sectors, Madam Speaker. Sectors where we deal with commodities, sectors where we deal with production in terms of that has got decreasing returns, Madam Speaker. I say so because our economy is predominantly an agricultural economy. And in an agricultural economy or a commodity economy, Madam Speaker, it costs you more to produce extra. Madam Speaker, I feel that as a country, for us to increase the revenues, we have to look at the enterprise. And an enterprise, Madam Speaker, that has got increasing returns, especially, Madam Speaker, where we blend production, we blend what we produce, Madam Speaker, and we infuse technology in it, Madam Speaker, so that we are at an economic level, Madam Speaker, of countries that are actually growing, Madam Speaker. There is no country in the whole of the history, Madam Speaker, that grew based on commodities and based on production, and especially production that has got decreasing returns. Madam Speaker, as I wind up, because I can see my time is over, I wonder what this regime expects. They have militarized our businesses, Madam Speaker. They have harassed our enterprise. And Madam Speaker, it goes without saying that when we harass the same people who work and toil, Madam Speaker, and especially those who are involved in enterprise and especially manufacturing, Madam Speaker, we do not expect to have a bigger base in terms of correction of our revenues. And Mr. Speaker, therefore, it behoves this regime to change the tact. They should be serving tea, they should be welcoming the people who are toiling, the business people in our country, other than demonizing them and using state apparatus, Madam Speaker,
Very well. Let me have the nominated member, Honorable Sankok David, to have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And from the onset, I do support this report, Honorable Speaker, because it is the correct way to go. And the report of the Committee on Finance, where they have gone to visit most of these areas where we collect taxes, Honorable Speaker, they have come up with an elaborate way of collecting more taxes. Honorable Speaker, you must spend a shilling to get another shilling. In KRA, you don't spend a shilling to get a shilling. You spend 1 shilling to get 100 shillings. Honorable Speaker, if we want to collect more money, because I believe we lose a lot of money through what we call tax evasion. And in Kenya, tax evasion have become heroic. People pride themselves in on how they have evaded taxes. And why don't they evade taxes when we are still in analog, when we still need a whole truck carrying loads and loads of goods to offload the whole truck, to count literally, and we are short of human resource, Honorable Speaker. They get tired, they assume that what is declared is what is there. I'm shocked to be told that one of our main entry area, that is the airport, JKIA, there was a time that the scanner was not working. You can imagine goods that came in that time that were not properly declared. And you know, the moment you know that there is a loophole here, that's why I'm saying in Kenya, to evade taxes is heroic, because you know you will do it, because you are aware that there is such shortcoming, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we must automate, we must digitalize our ways of collecting funds, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is this House that allocate funds. I don't see the reason why we don't allocate more funds to KRA. Because if we allocate 200 billion to KRA, we'll be able to collect almost 20 trillion, Honorable Speaker. That's what we need, and it is there. Honorable Speaker, I'm also shocked to be told that there is no scanners in our border point to Uganda, Honorable Speaker, in Malaba. So you can imagine, without a scanner, that you have to literally remove all the goods in a lorry. How many lorries can you be able to remove goods? Those staff live there is no staff quarters. They live very far from their station. When they come, they are already tired. Of course, they want to release some lorries so that there will be no jam, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we really need to up our game. Honorable Speaker, taxes that we sometimes impose on things like wood, Honorable Speaker. There was a motion that we brought here that we need to exempt wood from taxes and timber products, Honorable Speaker, because we want to conserve Mau. We want to conserve Aberdare. We want to conserve our forests because we are 1.7% forest cover. We need to conserve this forest. How do you conserve this forest? Yet construction is still going on in Kenya, yet building is still going on in Kenya, and these people need timber, and you are levying high taxes on timber that could have otherwise been imported from Congo forest, from Uganda, from Rwanda. Honorable Speaker, imagine timber coming into Kenya. It will assist us in manufacturing. It will save our forests. It will bring rains because we will save our forest. It will bring food security. It will employ so many youth, Honorable Speaker. It may make us a country that we export wood byproduct because we have so many carpenters that we have trained in our TVETs, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have really to think of ways of, Honorable Speaker, collecting more funds. And Honorable Speaker, the issue of taxes, the base must be very broad. It cannot be broad when we are overtaxing those manufacturers, those small enterprises that are here, and they prefer going to Uganda. They prefer investing in Tanzania. And then they sell us the finished product, Honorable Speaker. I've heard of investors who have huge sum of money to invest in Kenya, but they prefer other countries. Honorable Speaker, what is so difficult in us saying that every investor that can invest $1 billion US dollars will be.
Please plan on your timing, members. Honorable Odual Adhiambo. Let me have the Honorable Odual Adhiambo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on the onset, I'd like to support this report. Madam Speaker, I support this report because indeed, as is clearly indicated, it is telling us what the committee found. And Madam Speaker, the two recommendations that have been raised, I support because they are in line with what we see as observations. Madam Speaker, as I support these recommendations, particularly with regards to, one, Madam Speaker, ensuring that we can invest in the infrastructure of KRA with regards to looking at how they can better assess, collect, and account for all revenue. And Madam Speaker, also looking at the capacity, the human resource. I want, Madam Speaker, to truly just base my support on one premise. And Madam Speaker, that is that as much as we are looking at the report from the committee, Madam Speaker, there's a sense in which what we can see, what we are being told, is something that Kenyans might in fact be expecting. Madam Speaker, for this reason, I would want, as I support the committee, to suggest that indeed it is important that we ensure that we can get scanners, Madam Speaker, because we have seen that where we do have scanners, we get a lot more. Indeed, Madam Speaker, it is important that we get more staff, and I want to thank the Honorable Chair Wanga, because if we get the youth, we can get them employment and they can get more. Indeed, Madam Speaker, it is extremely important that we ensure that we can extend the hours so that we do not keep the country from getting revenue. But Madam Speaker, my concern, however, is that you can indeed ensure that you have scanners, but if you don't change the culture, if you don't change the practice, if you don't change the value of the person, Madam Speaker, who will be operating the scanner, or if you don't change the expectation of the youth, Madam Speaker, who will be brought on board to collect the revenue, then you might find that you haven't really done very much. So, Madam Speaker, I'm actually, at the moment, convinced that the book of Isaiah says, "Come, let us reason together. Even though your sins be as red as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow." And Madam Speaker, I've read this report, and this report clearly tells us that there is a big challenge. It is not just KRA, Madam Speaker, but my recommendation and urge to the committee is that we look at KRA, but we see that KRA is reflecting, Madam Speaker, as has been rightly said by the report, the culture of corruption, as has been said by Honorable Sankok 001, tax evasion, as has been said by the chair, that you have a practice of putting watermelon so that ethanol is below it. It has indeed been confirmed that, Madam Speaker, the culture, which we can see as the values that we have, Madam Speaker, the beliefs, Madam Speaker, the norms, really are the ones that even if we were to bring the infrastructure, even indeed if we were to ensure we get the policy, we might find that unless we really become innovative, Madam Speaker, and unless we really address the issue of culture, we might not get very far. And therefore, as somebody from the Committee of Culture, Sports and Tourism, I invite the Finance Committee that we need to have a recommendation that would seek to have a conversation and would need to model how we can break away from this culture that is truly at the heart. Madam Speaker, with this I support.
Good debate. Let me have the member for Navahol, the Honorable Wangwe Emmanuel.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the committee report, Committee on Finance and Planning. Honorable Speaker, revenue is the backbone of any economy in terms of planning. If you have to plan, you only plan for what you have. You cannot plan for what you don't have, and therefore your budget will definitely go out of place. Honorable Speaker, Kenya Revenue Authority is a very good organization, if well supported, and I want to thank the chair for the Committee on Planning and Finance for making an early intervention in terms of visiting the sites, the various OSBPs, to come up with what is actually happening before budget. And I'm very happy that at least after now visiting the budget, the various OSBPs, the Committee on Finance was able to implore on the CS National Treasury to plan and budget for Kenya Revenue Authority. Honorable Speaker, the issue of scanners, as detailed in this report, is very key. Kenya is now moving towards the west in terms of development. We are making a lot of importations far and away. And Honorable Speaker, it will be very bad, indeed it's bad, that you can now do the examination of the goods imported into this country manually. It's important to carry out the scientific way by way of scanners. And Honorable Speaker, these scanners is not just an issue of revenue, but I also look at it as a way of security. What is it that we are importing into the country? Is it an item? Is it an explosive? What is it particularly that we are trying to declare? And Honorable Speaker, the PFM Act tells us that we cannot levy tax on an illegal item. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, should it be that it's an explosive and we now collect tax on an illegal item into the country, in itself is an illegal. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it's important that we really try to live within the laws that we make, we live within the Constitution, and therefore, the issue that the committee has done to push KRA now to secure to buy scanners so that we levy tax on the actual items that we use. Looking at the revenue collection of 2 trillion shillings into the 2021-2022, and without scanners, how about if we get scanners? We are likely now to grow our revenue higher. Therefore, I want to support the Committee on Finance so that we really keep our Kenya Revenue Authority afloat. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
Very well. The member for Diwa, the Honorable Martin Owino. Honorable Martin Owino, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first of all, I want to say that I support this entirely, and I want to congratulate the committee, especially how the chair is working with the vice chair. I think that is something to be emulated. Madam Speaker, we have just come back from Arusha, and we passed almost a mile of trucks just queuing, and we had some conversation. It's all about our inefficiency in doing business, so we lose money. And the committee have done well. There are some recommendations here, which I want to allude to briefly, but also we have to, I hope they will recommend a study, especially when you are talking of impact assessment. You may not get it all by just visits. Madam Speaker, it's true that our borders work with 24 hours, but you cannot manage borders 24-hour operation without staff. Not only physical staff present there, but these staff must be capacitated. They must build their capacities. And that's why we are having questions of scanners maybe not working. If there is no proper supervisory role, even those who are working with those scanners can jam them for their own good. Madam Speaker, it's not news that some people would like to thrive in confusion if there is no proper supervision. So the HR issue is key here, and I agree with the committee that should be looked into. Madam Speaker, the issue of high cost in doing business maybe should be taken further, even to the East African community, so that we have some harmonized kind of taxation, because if we tax people much, I said it here, it's like milking a cow to the vein, you'll be kicked. You'll not get milk. And business people, even international, they will shy away. And now you have had our machineries being shifted to, what is it that Uganda is doing that we cannot do? And we are talking of an institution here which is over 32 years old. So I think that lowering taxes or harmonizing taxes is key for all of us as a community, and I think that should be, that discussion should be held even with the East African community. And Speaker, the other point which they brought, which will not help us much, is the porous borders. Porous borders facilitate small bits of trading here and there. And there's nothing you can do. You cannot, even Trump in the US tried to build a wall. You cannot do anything much. Where we have porosity is the real formal borders, where these trucks go and inspected well, there's no enough HR to do the work. That is where we have the porosity. Others, we might not care much, but if we can concentrate on Malaba, Namanga, Busia, Mombasa, all these ports, JKIA, and equip them well, manage them well, then we can increase our collection of revenue. Madam Speaker, there's also another point here which they brought, which I think, in my thinking, this is my thinking, if we want KRA to invest, to collect more money, we have to invest in KRA. I only have a few minutes, so why can't you?
As a matter of procedure, let me
Okay.
hear what the Honorable Sankok has as a point of order. Yes, Honorable Sankok.
Honorable Speaker, I've just seen Honorable Sunguya being close to you despite the issue of COVID-19. Because you are very beautifully dressed today, so there is some little affinity. So I think we should actually try to maintain the COVID-19 protocols, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, today you are smartly dressed, I must say. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Wow. Honorable Sankok, thank you for the comments, but you can see very well that the distance has been kept. There's a barrier. But thanks for the comments. Yes, Honorable Member for... Yes, just carry on. Actually, you are...
Thank you. What a wonderful way of getting the eyes of the
and
Speaker.
I'll even actually add you 1 more minute. I know
Thank you.
Honorable
I wish you
Sankok
could
wanted to-
use other means. But my last point, Madam Speaker, is that we have to have a formula for plowing back money to KRA. We have to work some percentage so that we just don't want to fund them without knowing how much should be invested fully so that they can collect enough money. Otherwise, I want to congratulate the committee. I think this is a good report. And as I said earlier, we need to recommend or extend better to get a study so that we can get an impact assessment report which is more of scientific nature. Otherwise, there are some factors which I don't think were controlled. Having scan alone and having high productivity does not reflect it all. There could be some other factors that are playing to get the productivity up. Madam Speaker, I support.
Very well, you support. And for this matter, let me have the member for Bondo, the Honorable Gola Ochanda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, once again. I think there are many things. There are many negative characteristics that Bendeville KRA in terms of the process of revenue collection. There are many. I don't want to belabor to that direction, but the main thing, I want to focus more on the direction of the visits, the report on the visit of the border posts. Madam Speaker, as I visit this, one thing that I want to say that the House needs to be a little bit clear about, we may be talking to ourselves. The Vice Chair, if he's listening, a report almost superior to what you brought today has been brought into this House twice. It was brought, I think, 7 years ago or 8 years ago. I was a member of the Select Committee of Regional Integration. It was brought again 3 years ago in the same committee. In terms of the report, how they visited, they did the border post inspections. And there are much more that they brought out. This issue of scanners, the issue of lack of water in Malaba, the whole issue of KRA personnel living in the quarters of smugglers, all these things were brought 7 years ago. So, Madam Speaker, what I'm trying to say is, when reports are those that are brought by a committee, which does not necessarily oversight a specific department or a specific authority, where do these reports go to? Because I want to believe either the implementation committee, select committee of implementation, may be picking up these things like that. The work of the finance committee might have been made much more simpler if they had these two different separate reports. Now, if you try to compare the reports, Madam Speaker, if you go to Malaba, they corroborate. There's a lot of similarities. But there's one thing that is important that we point out. All government agencies benefit in one way or the other from revenues that are generated by KRA, including Kenya Roads, Kenya Highway Authority. This authority has failed to fix the Malaba border post arrangement for the last 8 years. Note that there's no money. Money has been there, and the Vice Chair, if you listen, there is money with an organization that's called Trademark. They mentioned many times they have the money. Kenya has failed to do this for purposes of fixing the problem in Malaba, for purposes of where parking of trucks and all that kind of stuff. There's been money. The other thing, there's been money from EU for doing Jumuiya market in Busia. Your report might have not mentioned that, but we've had this twice. EU had money. Busia has failed to identify exactly where the market is supposed to be done for purposes of reducing smuggling. What's called the Jumuiya market. It was identified for Busia, it has never been implemented. So that's something that maybe is missing in the report. So what I'm trying to say, Madam Speaker, is that while Finance Committee has done very well in terms of actual visits, had they realized or had somebody pointed to them a little bit earlier that there were reports that were already from all our entry points, they would have had a much more in-depth kind of information about what has been happening. I want to believe KRA is one of our blue chip agencies in this country, a government blue chip agency. It's not that it's lack of money. I think there's issues of creativity. There are issues of people being used to the tradition of doing things. They don't want to get out of their bracket. They don't want to get out of the box. It has been mentioned even in this House severally that the cost of production in this country is much more higher than our neighbors. So that means anybody who wants to buy anything and is closer to a border will cross, will go the other side. It was mentioned here the other week when we were discussing the budget that when you're in Malaba, everybody goes for commodities the other side. When you're in Busia, the same. Whether it is fuel, whatever it is, including food, they go across. It's cheaper the other side. So what is it that we need to do here? It doesn't need any other serious learning. KRA needs to be creative. KRA needs to learn from some of these basic things so that we are able to generate enough revenue. And the other thing is that agencies, government agencies, that are benefiting from revenue that are raised by Kenya Revenue Authority must get to support KRA. And one of them includes Kenya Highways Authority, Madam Speaker, for purposes of this report. Thank you.
Let me hear from the member of Migori County, the county member of parliament, Migori County.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this report because I think it is timely. I join my colleagues to say that KRA should be properly facilitated. Madam Speaker, I have very brief points. I may not even finish the 5 minutes. I just wanted to appreciate the committee for visiting all those entry points of Kenya and exit points of goods and people from Kenya as they go doing their businesses, thereby necessitating taxation. But I want to encourage the able chair of finance and fault her for not visiting all those points that they would refer to, Madam Speaker, with your permission, Panya routes. Like Migori County enjoys one of the longest borders with Tanzania and then Uganda through the lake. Now, apart from visiting Sirare, there are very many other entries that I think quite a number of goods, especially consumables like food substances led by maize and fruits, come in volumes and nobody captures them. For example, there is this place I call Mutomorabe in Korea West and Kitabai in Sona West, and even the border in the lake at Muru Bay through another place just at the exact border of Tanzania and Kenya in the lake. All these places bring in quite a number of goods from outside, and they are actually passing there through no taxation. And if anybody pays anything, then that money is going to the hands of the wrong people, encouraging something that I used to hear being talked about in Kenya called magendo. And Madam Speaker, I think if KRA is properly facilitated through proper financing, they should raise even more border points, especially between us and the East African countries. It is a pity, like what the chair was highlighting, that our trucks pass our border, then they are scanned on the other side, and then we borrow those pictures. That is unacceptable because technology-wise, education-wise, and everything-wise, Kenya has been way ahead of these other East African countries. I am aware we are sisters and brothers, but what is happening, it is not easy for people from our country to cross over and even do business in the other countries, much as we keep talking about the East African community. I'm talking here with authority because I take care of a border county. Madam Speaker, the concept of scanning these things, I just wanted to support Madam Wanga's point that sometimes these truck owners carry illicit goods, or they are not illicit per se, but those ones that they know have value are hidden under some valueless good, and they pass. For example, I remember immediately soon after our election in 2017 and 2018-19, there was an incident in Migori County of a big truck that actually came in, and at some stage it was trapped, and it was found to be carrying bangi. Another one was found to be carrying the ethanol that she was talking about. So, Madam Speaker, I think it is necessary that we scan these trucks as they come in and as they go out. Even one that has been scanned in Mombasa, I strongly feel that if they are going across the country into another country, they need to be scanned right there before they cross over. Madam Speaker, I thought I would not speak for 5 minutes, but I can see the lights on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Then let me have the member for the job, the Honorable Duale Dahir. Honorable Duale Dahir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this report. I want to take this chance to first thank the Committee of Finance for providing a very comprehensive report. However, I do feel that this report has left a major part of this country, because Kenya has borders with, I think, 5 countries: Tanzania, Uganda, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia. And for us, I think in the Northeast, we have 3 counties in Northeastern region, and Lamu in the coastal region, which also borders Somalia. And none of those places actually have been visited. And to say further, none of those places have got the one-stop border posts which has been mentioned here, leave alone any equipment. And while we are talking about improving tax from the existing places, I want to say to the chair and the deputy chair, the vice chair, that just take note that we have no there's no collection of revenue in those 4 counties I've mentioned, yet there's a lot of traffic of goods across the border. And it is really very sad, because I know that custom officials in Garissa County are based in Garissa town, while we have got an official immigration designated point at Liboi. We have custom officers in Wajir. Yesterday, we were at a place called Dif, which is 2 kilometers from the Somali border. It's a gazetted custom immigration point. And our speaker also was with us yesterday. And this is a place which also can become a revenue source if we put the necessary things. So what I want to say is that, Madam Speaker, I want the Finance Committee to take time to visit Mandera County, which has got at least Mandera border control point, to visit Wajir County, visit Dif, and I think there are 1 or 2 other places, visit Garissa County and visit Liboi, visit Fafi. We have got Amuma. We have also Kiunga in Lamu. And these are all official gazetted entry points. Some of them are not really gazetted, but I know quite a number of them are gazetted, and we would have actually created more revenue if these posts were there and people were posted there to collect revenue. The problem, of course, is that the result of this has been that there's been a lot of illicit trade. Illicit trade, which is coming in through the border, and we are not getting any value, any revenue from them. Besides that, we don't even know what is coming into the country. There are a lot of pioneer routes, and maybe arms are being smuggled, and even drugs and other expired commodities. So really, I want to, while I see that this is a very good report to improve tax collection from existing points, but this report really needs to also note that there are places where we could get revenue, actually a substantial amount of revenue, which would have really contributed to reduce our deficit budget-wise. So I just want to ask the team also to consider. For me, I think that the measures which they have recommended, the suggestions which were given in the report are very valid, and this will go a long way in actually making us collect more tax. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the chance. Thank you.
Thank you, the member for the DAB. Let me have the member for Kitui Rulo, General Boni Mwalika.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving this opportunity to support this report. Madam Speaker, the recommendations which has been made in this report can address the big question why tax revenue as a percentage of GDP has been going down from 13% to 25% to around 70% currently. Madam Speaker, it's also important to note that only 3 sectors, manufacturing, ICT, and communication, banking and finance, which contribute 13%, contribute 52% of tax revenue. So there's a need for this country to come up with measures and mechanisms to tax other sectors. Otherwise, these sectors, they are overtaxed. And basically, if they are overtaxed, we are likely to see companies relocating to other countries, and we are going to lose jobs, lose incomes, and also lose the revenue. Currently, goods from Uganda, as mentioned earlier by other speakers, other members, honorable members, they are being consumed in our border post. There's also need for Treasury to review tax laws to promote ease of doing business. Because this idea of amending laws every financial year through finance bill, they are not doing justice to the companies. it makes companies uncertain of what is going to happen next. So it's good to do a comprehensive tax revenue and let the tax revenue measures be implemented for a period of time and analyze to see the impact of them. Madam Speaker, we all know that KRA is grossly underfunded and, of course, understaffed. KRA is supposed to get 2.5% of the tax revenue they collect. And most times, they don't get the money. So Treasury should give KRA more money to hire staff and train the staff so that they can be able to raise more revenue. But more importantly, KRA should enhance and modernize their ICT systems. In other countries, when you buy something, the servers of the traders are linked with the servers of the revenue collection bodies in those countries. So if KRA can come up with such a system, we are going to collect more revenues because it's real time. Whatever you buy, KRA is aware this company A has sold this value of goods, that this amount of tax revenue they are supposed to pay. So KRA should be able to modernize their ICC system. The KRA should also be funded to install drive-through scanners. These scanners, if you are doing scanners through driveway, you require less than a minute for truck to go through. But if you are doing manual, you require more time to scan. And this one is a waste of time. And we end up wasting a lot of time. And the scanners, they will make business easy for people to do business. I like that recommendation whereby by one of the members. In Northeastern, there's no border posts. And there are so many goods which are coming to this country from other countries. We have Moyale border post, which I'm not very sure is operational. And that one was done a long time ago. So we need to operationalize that so that at least we can collect more revenue. Lastly, cost of electricity. Not only cost of electricity, it's also cost of water and other things which makes our goods very expensive. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support.
Let's have the member for Saburu East, the Honorable Lekumontare Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Help us spell as well.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to support this report. And Madam Speaker, these are very important reports and well researched. And Madam Speaker, it's really very bad if KRA is not supported with what they need so that they can support the country. If you look at what the committee brought, Madam Speaker, KRA, if they cannot perform, the whole issue of even the debts and all that what we borrow from outside is as a result of KRA not well funded, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, if all the borders can be manned, this country can be able to support its budget. And if really the way the committee researched and they found all those issues, and according to what other members have said, that it has been like that, it then means we lack implementation of what the former committee brought. And Madam Speaker, if you look at what we are doing to these border points, especially the northern parts. There are so many things which come through those border points, and they just come into the country freely. Some are good and some are bad things coming to our country. And the KRA is really like an eye to us. Yeah, thank you. I'm just alone here. So, Madam Speaker, you see some of us, we are really disturbed by these things. But I want to say, if KRA not supported, then we cannot cure the problem of this country. Madam Speaker, it's really very bad. If what we depend to support the economy, to support the budget of the country, is in a very bad shape, as indicated by the committee. And I think this House should really support the KRA. If they lack staff, then what are we waiting? What are we thinking that we are going to fund the budget? It's really very bad. And if maybe it is the one that we are depending to support us, then it is really very bad, Madam Speaker. And I know we are able to support the budget if only we can enable this body to function well. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I'll support this report so that we can at least see with what they have earlier and this one, then implementation is very important so that we cannot again come here and say the KRA staffs do not have houses, there are no scanners. It is really a very bad thing if we cannot implement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. The long name, Lekumontare. Then now we have the member for Saboti, the Honorable Luyaya Misi. Honorable Luyaya Misi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to add a voice to this very important discourse. And I want to applaud the Committee on Finance for, they have tried to change the conversation. We've always been talking about revenue sharing, but we've never focused on revenue collection. So this is a very important debate that our country is always in a quagmire, almost a constitutional quagmire when it comes to revenue sharing between the national government, the county government. But we not forgetting that the problem lies with now the little resources we have, how we can, enhance so that we grow it bigger. And Madam Speaker, the world is going techno-savvy. Everywhere systems are automated. And it is actually a paradox that we are talking about automating systems of revenue sharing. You'll find if Miss is all about sharing the revenue. We are very good at that. You'll find channeling the resources. We have all the systems automated. But then when it comes to collection of the very revenue that we need, we are stuck. So this is a very important conversation, Madam Speaker. And I think KRA, what they are requesting is that for us to enhance and optimize our revenue collection, please add us more resources. I think this is something that we must support as members to give capacity to KRA to enable them collect more resources and to close the loopholes where there have been hemorrhage of funds or traders trying to evade tax evasions and all that. Once we close these loopholes, then we have a chance to collect more resources. People are arguing about growing the cake, that we should focus on growing our revenue. But first, put the systems in place to protect and preserve the little you have. Then when you get the plenty, then you are better in a better position to also preserve and protect it. So let us, as much as we have this little we talk about, let's grow the cake first. Let's preserve the cake that we have. Let's protect it. So this conversation is timely, and we must, I support the committee report that we must empower, we must capacity build the KRA to be able to give us more resources to, as a nation. And Madam Speaker, the question of tax regime, I think it is a high time we look at or we re-engineer our tax policies, our tax regimes, laws, the whole architecture around the tax regime, because there is nothing traders fear than high taxes. And this is where we chase away investors. There is no any nation in this world that has progressed by overtaxing its citizens. The more we increase our taxes, and it is actually one of the reasons why it leads to tax increase, is because of we have lacking capacity to collect the little we have. So they change tactics that start now overtaxing for us to be able to support our national basket, because we've been unable to collect the little we have. So let us also look at our tax regime so that they are favorable to traders. You can't have traders and high taxes in one room. It cannot happen. In fact, some of the Winston Churchill's statements were that a nation that taxes itself to prosperity is like a man sitting in a bucket and trying to lift himself with the handles of the bucket. It's not possible. You cannot tax yourself to prosperity. There is no nation, an example of a nation that has taxed itself to prosperity. Kenya cannot be an exception. We don't live in a vacuum. And we must look our tax regime carefully. We are chasing away investors. Most nations we may not have.
The member for Changamwe, General Shimbwa Mwinyi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for according me this opportunity to also air my views on the report on the Finance Committee. On the onset, I would actually say I support this report. However, I would recommend that the Finance Committee facilitates regular talks with businessmen and the people in the financial sector to try to get their views on the various tax regimes and the hurdles that are in place, so that at least they can do business comfortably and enjoy the fruits of their labor. There should be regular meetings so that at least members can air their view about the taxes or the programs that the government are introducing on matters taxation. Then the other aspect to look into is the recruitment of staff. The recruitment of staff should be based on competency. There should be fair distribution, and the promotion should also be based on competency and not where you're coming from or the region where you're coming from. This is the biggest predicament facing KRA. The other aspect, Madam Speaker, is that KRA is the machine which is supposed to be producing the much needed finances for the government to run. And if it cannot be facilitated, cannot be serviced properly, then you don't expect KRA to function efficiently, Madam Speaker. The aspect of scanners not working, I can remember the late Magufuli, the late president of Tanzania, who used to visit hospitals and such places as KRA to see for himself what is happening in those areas. and he could challenge those who are placed in charge of those institutions. For how long has this machine not been working? What have you been doing? Have you sent any reports anywhere? But this is not happening in our country, Madam Speaker. What is happening in this country of ours? Why are our presidents, why are our ministers not, of course, active in making sure revenue collection is done efficiently for this country to grow? The other challenge that KRA is also facing is, okay, here we are encouraging them to collect more revenue. But what happens when this revenue goes to the Treasury, Madam Speaker? We hear of people stealing money from dams, stealing money from this project and the other projects. So we end up doing what we call 0 plus 0 is around. And that is why everybody in Kenya today is a thief, because they are seeing everybody else who is prospering is stealing government money. So why do you have to collect money for the government for it to end up in the politicians' pockets? This is the challenge that we are having as a nation. Madam Finance Chair, I want you to take note of this one. It is a very major concern. Then, Madam Speaker, we also have the East African Legislative Assembly, where we have tax regimes discussed among the member states, states. And they normally come up with acceptable taxes, but how we renege to this is a matter, of course, that you should also look into. Why should Tanzania have a different tax regime where we are working as a team, as the East African Legislative Assembly? What is the problem? Why would the traders in Moyale go to Ethiopia to buy goods? And likewise in Uganda as well. This is something that, of course, we should also ask ourselves. Then, Madam Speaker, Honorable Ochanda gave a contribution about reports which are lying of former committees. Why don't we have those reports together, Madam Speaker, and we form a select committee to look into these challenges so that we solve these problems once and for all? I think with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to support this report, and I congratulate the committee for doing a good work. A good job. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to the committee. The Honorable Member for Lunyenjas, the Honorable Jiro Muchangi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. I want to start by thanking the Committee on Finance and National Planning for doing a very, very good job, because, Madam Speaker, it is on the basis of the availability of resources that we are able to plan on national development. And we require a lot of money from the taxpayers so that we can grow our country and stop relying so much on loans and funds from other countries. I want to support particularly the idea of scanners, because as I can see in the report, the committee noted that there was improved compliance from 2018 to July 2020, whereby there was improvement from 86% to 98%. That means if we facilitate KRA with resources, it will be possible to net more resources and help stabilize our country. Secondly, Madam Speaker, the committee noted that KRA is grossly understaffed, and actually, if they are not properly staffed, can be very difficult for them to gather resources. So the idea of funding KRA so that we can get 2,000 more staff is a very good idea, so that we can now get to more people and get taxes. Because I believe, just like one honorable member said here, the idea is not to tax a few people, so deeply. The idea is to widen the net so that we can get more people paying taxes. So I support the idea that we fund KRA more so that it can employ more people to do this job. And lastly, Madam Speaker, I support the idea of funding KRA so that we can acquire speedboats in the port of Mombasa and Kisumu, so that those who are good at evading taxes can be netted, so that we can get more resources for this country's development. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support.
You support the member for Trabaj constituency, the Honorable Gal Bashen.
Thank you, Madam
Is
Speaker.
it Gal or Gal?
Gal, you can
It's
just
Gal.
say, yes. You can pronounce it as
But not the Gal.
You can pronounce it as G-I-R-L. It's easier for you.
It's not G-I-R-L, it's G-A-R-L.
Yes, but pronunciation is similar. You
To
can
the
even use that.
G-I-R-L.
Yes.
But you're not a Gal.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And on the onset, I would say I support important because, as we know, and as we were told by the committee, when scanners were invested in Namanga, besides Malaba being busier, we were able to get 4B, while Malaba, there was 2 billion shillings which was got in that year under study. But we need to look at what other aspects is reducing the revenue collections. Maybe this is a leaking calabash. We might be collecting something, and what we are collecting might be going out. Are we looking at corruption? There might be high cases of corruption which we need to look at. Are we having high cost of doing business, especially on electricity? How is our infrastructure? And generally, how are our policies? How is our ease of doing business? In the report we were given by the committee, we have realized that foreign direct investment in Uganda is increasing, especially on tiles and steel. Why is it that these manufacturing plants are moving to Uganda not in Kenya? So these are some of the things we need to look at. One other aspect which, Madam Speaker, I need to mention is what Honorable Dole has talked about. We have a huge border in northern region, which is unmanned. It is not only making economic sense, but security sense. Having multi-agency team along this border will go in a long way to close these pioneer routes and minimize the revenues we are losing and increase revenue collection. Madam Speaker, what I need to talk about is East Africa integration. If we are very serious about East Africa integration, and we cannot even harmonize our taxes, especially on excise duty, what other aspects can we do? The more difficult aspects like political integration, military integration, monetary integration might be difficult. So it is very important that we harmonize our taxes as East Africa community. Thank you, and I support the report.
You support the reports. Let me have the member for Embakasi South, the Honorable Mawathe Musili. Honorable Mawathe Musili. Who is this member who is raising? You cannot just raise your hands here. I cannot see you in your request.
Kadi ilikuwa hapa.
Where is your card?
Thank you.
I cannot see you here. You can visit the clerk's desk. The finder.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam
Yes,
Speaker,
Honorable
for giving me
Mawathe.
this opportunity. I raise in support of this bill. I think it's very important that we continue to grow the avenues for revenue collection. And the reason is because the smaller the net, the more we tax the individuals. But if we grow the net of revenue collection, then we'll be able to tax people less. Just like I just noticed that the other day that there was a suggestion by the Treasury to start to increase the taxes. Or actually, they have already increased the taxes on baby milk and the such. we should find other avenues by growing the net out there. By putting more, by putting scanners and getting speedboats, putting scanners at the borders and getting speedboats at our lakes and the Indian Ocean, we'll be able to collect more revenue and hence reduce the amount that we are putting to the common mwananchi. The mother out there in Mukuru and the other neighborhoods cannot afford the new milk. Previously, they were buying the milk at a lower price. That is the baby milk. So we need to grow the revenue net so that we can, the catchment area, so that we can tax our people less. The other thing is also, we need to automate the revenue collection so that we're able to, those people that evade taxes, we're able to catch them and stop them from being able to run away, get away with it. Otherwise, with that, I do support and congratulate the committee for the wonderful job. Thank you.
Very well. Members, please, if you have to speak, please, if you have your cards, you should, and I'm sure you're not being trained on IT. If it doesn't reflect on my screen as a request, there's no way I can identify you, and we don't need to raise our hands. We are past that. There's the 12th Parliament, and the Parliament want techno. There's this member, I'm sure you have, honorable member for Fafa, yes. Your name is not reflected, though you were here early, but it's my discretion to give you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important bill. Report, I'm sorry. Madam Speaker, I think I was not in this parliament, the last parliament, and or the previous parliament when Kibaki was the president. And that's why we still remember President Kibaki. I think he was one of the best presidents we ever had. He used to say, northern part of Kenya is part of Kenya, open up. That's why we got even this tarmac from Nairobi to Ethiopia border. And the previous president who gave us, in fact, recognized us as Kenyans, was the late Moi. In fact, we got our first minister through Moi. In fact, he's the one who brought us to Kenya. And as a member of KANU, we still miss Moi. Why am I saying this? And the committee has visited part of Kenya and left 70% of landmass Kenya, northern part of Kenya. In my constituency, is the third largest in the country. The first one is North Horr, where the Minister for Finance comes from. The second is Wajir South, where our speaker was the day before yesterday. The third is mine. I have two borders, or two custom point in my constituency, a place called Amoma, and then another place called Halugo, which we share with Honorable, my sister Sophia. And let me be frank with you. The biggest problem we're having in this country is corruption. And we always talk about corruption. We cannot collect tax returns if we are not going to fight corruption. And the other problem we have here in this country is monopoly. People want to become rich, greed. People want to become rich. I don't know when they're going to use this kind of money. You'll see somebody have 2 billion, 3 billion, 10 billion shillings in their account, and he's still looking for more. You'll see he kills other businesses deliberately so they can make money alone. Madam Speaker, as my colleagues say from engineer and the Duale, and Honorable Dahia from the DAB, who is my neighbor, I think we need the committee to visit northern part of Kenya. 50% of the commodity of this country comes from Somalia or Ethiopia. Southern Sudan, we have a border. nobody has visited. Nobody have gone and seen it. They have not gone to Fafi. They have not gone to Liboi, where the DAB comes, where the member of the DAB comes from. They have not been to Moyale. We have a big number. Now you see, for example, I'm in Energy Committee, and before I became member of parliament, I was a businessman. And I used to do fuel. I used to export fuel sometimes. Now, our fuel business is taken over by Rwanda, it's taken over by Tanzania, it's taken over by other East African countries, neighbors, deliberately because of corruption. Adulteration was killing our industry. You will see, you go to the depots here, you will see trucks loading, they come out, they go to a shamba, they call it shamba. And then they put kerosene mixed with diesel. That's why you see most of our vehicles on the country, in this country. You know, you have to be in garage always. You lose your engine, you have to build, you have to buy a new engine. It's because of adulteration of fuel. Corruption is killing us. Now, most of the commodity coming from northern part of Kenya, especially Ethiopia and Somalia, come through barriers. Police are there. They come all the way to Nairobi. They are not paying taxes. And now you are talking about collecting taxes. Why can't we have KRA around or the borders where we can collect taxes and legalize these products which are coming illegally into the country? So, Madam Speaker, I want KRA or I want the committee to visit Madam Chair. I know she's capable. Our sister.
I can see her taking notes. Just give me 1 minute. Just 1 minute. But
yeah, I think. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for adding me. I want to talk good about Wanga. I think she's a very tough lady. She is a honorable member who has the capacity to change the finance or the tax bills. And I wish her, because she's going to be our next governor from that part of Kenya, I want her to come to our counties before she becomes a governor. I want her to come there and see how Kenya and how big our country is and how we can collect money from our neighbors or put KRA in the borders of Ethiopia and Somalia. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I'm sure she never sent you to campaign for her. It's not a campaign.
No, she never sent me, but I know her very well.
You're inviting her to your party. Yeah,
I've seen her especially when Kenya was going down. In fact, she's one of the pioneers of handshake. And she always stands with her party leader, and she's also a principal lady. So I support her, and I want her to visit Fafi and Liboi, Lugo, and go all the way to Moyale before we conclude this report. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for adding me that minute.
Very well.
And I always support Wanga, and I will continue supporting her as our chair in this finance committee.
Thank you. Thank you. I can see the Honorable Wanga is taking notes on the areas, and also the vice chairman and the members of the committee who are present in the House. Then let me have the member for Kitui East. Kitui East, the Honorable Mbaimbiduka. Give him the mic, the member for Kitui East. Yes, there you are, member.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I appreciate for the time you have given me to add my voice on this report, which is very important to our country. Madam Speaker, as we look at sustenance of our economy, one of the variables which will have to come at the top is tax collection and revenue. Madam Speaker, looking at increasing our basket in terms of revenue, there are several areas we need to look into. And we've had and we've carried on problems and challenges from former governments which have continued to pose problems to our revenue collection programs. Madam Speaker, one of the things that baffles me is we've seen continued increment in taxes per the taxable institution. as in you instead of you increase taxation on bread instead of increasing the number of people who are producing bread. You increase taxation on beer instead of increasing the number of companies producing beer. Madam Speaker, that draws me to my next point, where I would recommend that we need to look into the most critical function of our government, which is to provide an enabling economy for the private sector to grow. With the growth of the private sector, Madam Speaker, we will have so many organizations which are taxable cropping up, and that will increase our tax base and increase our tax basket. Madam Speaker, we are also looking at the government coming in with incentives to help in growing, especially like the agricultural sector, where we've seen this is a sector which has not been invested fully. This is a sector that very few people are going into because of the challenges around it. So if we could have government bring in incentives, Chair, finance, that's one of the areas you can push the government to, and I'm worried that you are about to leave the government and go become a governor. I don't know how we will survive without you here. That's one of the areas that can help us get more revenue to the country. The other thing, Madam Speaker, is we have governments across the world and Asia, and that's how Asia grew, is the tax regime, is tax base, by the government coming up with wealth creation programs. Take, for example, a young medical graduate from the University of Nairobi. This guy is just granted the other day. What he has is his papers, some knowledge, and the energy. The guy cannot pay taxes, but supported, this guy will even employ 20 people who will pay taxes. How do we support this young man? That's where the government comes in. Madam Speaker, we have all these funds, the youth fund. We have so many funds getting names changing within financial years. In the start of this financial year, it was youth fund. In the middle of the financial year, it is youth and women fund. In the end of the financial year, I don't know what fund. And the youth cannot access. So, Madam Speaker, we are looking at the government coming in with these funds to support wealth creation, and especially using the youth. Madam Speaker, my last point is on expenditure. The government is spending so much on recurrent expenditure. You look up at our budgets and you would wonder, why did we have to collect these revenues? As in the first 5 items on our budget is recurrent: travel. I don't know what. It's too much, Madam Speaker. It's time we focused our taxes to real development and not recurrent expenditure. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I really appreciate the committee and the chair. Thank you.
Very well. Then now the last request, that is the final speaker, who is the last request, the member to contribute. The Honorable Member for Makueni, Honorable Manso Kitonga, and then I call them over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, sorry. I rise to support this very important report and congratulate the committee for work well done. And I believe when Honorable Wanga finally becomes a governor, she will definitely be back to the national government after 2 terms, considering the sort of work she's done here. I'm sure one day she'll be a minister for finance. One of the main issues with tax collection in Kenya, and if you look at the history, for example, when President Kibaki came to power, first of all, for people liking the new government, he made a call that he encourages Kenyans to pay tax, and especially the ones running in their own private businesses. And because it was a call where there was no force, there were very long queues. Everybody going to pay something to KRA. to make sure that the government is supported. So I think one of the issues is attitude, the attitudes Kenyans adapt, and the willingness. I'm aware that the Kenya Revenue Authority may not even have the necessary staff or sufficient staff or even a budget. You remember how much we give them in budget here. It's one of their complaints. To be able to really reach to every single Kenyan who could be paying tax, and the ones who are not paying willingly, those who don't want to give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, then some force to make sure that they pay the taxes. And this runs from international companies in the country. People do trade, especially across border. And worst of it is the corruption, you know, which takes place in the country, and especially how some people go pay very little, they declare very little, and then after declaring little, of course, some bribes are exchanged within the officers of KRA. So upon visiting and to see the impact of revenue enhancement and the initiatives you can take, it was a good visit, but I don't believe there was enough room and there will be enough time for the committee to do every single thing. But they can give a guideline, and I think that's what they've done, and this guideline can be very useful to make sure that there are initiatives so that the revenue can be collected a lot more, because you know we have to cover our budget. And one of the initiatives, especially post-COVID period, is SMEs, so that we have the government funding upcoming of many businesses, so that those businesses of which are all registered anyway, are able to, to give back after people have been productive. So when we have many Kenyans who have lost their jobs, and even when the president took the initiative to do away with the taxes on some very small salaries, and whereby most of those people in any event lost their job, and now with the advent of the use of ICT, a lot of people are working from home and cutting a lot of costs. A lot of people have definitely lost their jobs. So what's the best way to do it? Make sure that our budget favors those startups and the SMEs and those two sort of businesses. That's what the countries which have come from our current situation, like the countries in the East, have done. So I really want to support Honorable Wanga, but think that another visit should be funded so that more information can be given, so that our country can be able to produce. Because if you are not in production, then you are going to give zero reports. You are going to say zero return. And if you are jobless, really, you will not be in a position to pay taxes. So that many Kenyans can participate. And I think the best thing is like what President Kibaki did. Let the people pay taxes, declare them honestly, and even without being forced to support their own country. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, members, there be no another request or any other member willing to speak to the inspection visits to ascertain the impact of revenue enhancement initiatives on the revenue collection. I therefore call upon the mover to reply. Mover.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to thank all the members who have contributed, and to assure Honorable Dr. Oshanda, the member for Bondo, the member for Fafi, Dr. Duare, that our committee undertakes to do further visits to Garissa, Wajir, Riboi, Difu, Fafi, Kiunga, Horohoro in Rugaruga, Shimoni, and all our other border posts. Those officially established, and also to go and investigate all those illegal panya routes with a view of developing OSBs in those areas. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the members for their keen interest in supporting this motion. I also wish to mention, Madam Speaker, that the accolades my chair is receiving is for her contribution and leadership in our committee. She has challenged us to think how we are going to bake a bigger cake for this country. Madam Speaker, we are also appealing to Kenyans to do the year returns before the financial year comes to a close, so that Kenyans pay revenue and we are able to support our economic development. Madam Speaker, it is true that if we can prudently conserve and oversight the revenues that are being collected by KRA, this country will no longer need to borrow from IMF. We shall be self-sufficient and we will have move economically faster, and this country is going to be stable. And Madam Speaker, may it please you that I call upon my chair to give her last shot in replying to this motion, if it pleases you. Thank you. She has declined, Madam Speaker, and I wish to move. I wish to reply and
Very
thank
well.
everybody and even members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, the Vice Chair. And again, as we said, we want to appreciate your good working relationship with your chairperson, the Honorable Wanga, and we wish the Committee of Finance and National Planning the best. And members, there being no another business in our, and before we get to the other, yes, members, my house is not properly constituted for me to be able to put the question on motion number 10, and I therefore order that the motion on number 10 be deferred. Again, members, there be no other business in the order paper for today. That is a Tuesday, June 29, 2021, the evening sitting. The time being 21:26. This House stands adjourned until the Wednesday, 30th June 2021 at 2:30 p.m. I thank you all.